If you remember last time, we spoke about singing and music. And we have to emphasize one point which we didn't emphasize then, and that is the following. It's very important, the entire Shita of the Baal Shem Tov, remember we said, you really do not have to understand the words of the davening. It's better if you do understand the words of the davening, but you don't have to understand the words of the davening. What's central to the Baal Shem Tov's Shita is to understand that the words themselves have an innate kedusha. They have tremendous energy, tremendous power. It's not revealed, you don't see it. It's a understanding of these letters, these words were used to create the world. As the pasuk says, Ki biyo Hashem tzur olamim. Biyo, biyud hey, with Hashem using those two letters, he used them as tools to create the world. Yud hey. The yud was used to create olam haba, and the hey, olam hazeh. And we spoke about that at length. It's absolutely amazing how one letter.
Something fell down over there from the top. What fell down?
Whatever, leave it. It's not bothering anybody. The hey is the letter of olam hazeh. It's the letter of breath. When you say a hey, you have to breathe. So this world exists only if there is oxygen, if there is breathing. And this hay was used to create all of the constellations, all of the trillions of stars. Try to fathom that one letter can contain so much energy. It's spiritual energy, which is translated into physical form, eventually. But the hay has tremendous energy, and it was enough to create this planet and the entire universe. It's all considered olam hazeh. Something which is beyond our scope of understanding, all the trillions and trillions of stars. All you have to do is, as we say in English, hitch a ride. Jump into the words. Think of the letters in your mind. Visualize the letters of the word, and visualize yourself becoming united with the word, jumping into the word. Expand the letter and jump into it. Become part of the letter. Bo ala teva, as Hashem told Noach. Come into the word. If you come into the word, then you go up with the word as the word goes up. You don't have to have any more than that. It's just somebody hitches a ride with you, as they say here in Israel. You gave him a tramp, he gets into the car and the car moves and he goes along with the car. The same thing happens when you join the word, you become part of the word, you go up to Shemayim with the words and you do whatever has to be done automatically. But it requires you to think that, I want to become part of the word.
Part of the letter first.
The letter? Yes, you're right, the letter. I want to go into each individual letter, and then the letters will join to make a word, and that's what goes up. Yeah, what do you want to ask a question? Go ahead.
I had in mind exactly what you're saying. I went to a Moroccan Shabbat, Shafri. Basically, it was all singing by the Kala, and then they had a Chazan. And I couldn't distinguish your kind of what you're espousing, just privately,
one minute, okay.
as opposed to everybody.
All right. So we said that's the basic shita as far as how to daven. I mean, there's much more. There's many more shurim that we're going to give on it, but that's the basic principle that we already covered. Bo Lateva, come into the word, come into the letters. So then last week we brought up this issue, we brought up one of the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov, that says that people think, that you have certain parts of davening, and for this kind of davening you have this kind of a nigun, and for that davening another nigun, and for that different parts of Hallel, this, the Chadodi, and they think that this is, I sang it, it was so meaningful, it was so beautiful, and now I'm really attached to Hashem. Well, this fellow is also coming from the Hasidic world, and he knows what nigunim are. The Hasidim are very big on singing, zmiros and so on and so forth. And he says, it's all a big bluff. It's all a big bluff. And you brought the raya last week. What's the raya, the biggest raya? When you're davening Shmona Esrei, are you singing?
No.
No singing. You can't even say the words loud. You have to concentrate very, very hard and whisper, no more than whispering. Like a person who's in a meditation. Basically, you may say over something in a meditation very silently to yourself. It helps you go deeper and deeper and deeper. That's what real tefillah is. Real tefillah is when you are concentrating and focusing with all of your concentration. They said on Rabbi Chaim Orzeg Rodzinski, who was one of the greatest poskim in the last generation before World War II. He was a genius. He hardly ever forgot anything. And people used to send, my Rosh Yeshiva was a Talmud of his, or I served on his Bezdin, and he said he used to get sacks of mail, not mail, sacks of mail, from European Jewry all over the world would send him letters, Shiloh and Chuvas, about problems in the Jewish world. And he had all these things on his mind, plus he was the Rav of Vilna. Vilna was the center of Lithuanian Judaism. When he davened Shmona Esrei, his forehead was red and a vein that he had in his forehead bolted out because he had to be able to forget all of the problems that he had on his shoulders and know that he's talking to God. And as idealistic as you can be, he's devoted to his constituents, to the people in Vilna, to all of Klal Yisrael. When you talk to God, that also has to be put aside. No problems. You're talking now to God. You have to have full focus, full concentration. Therefore, he put so much energy into it that his forehead was red, and a vein that he had on his forehead used to bulge. So, if that is real tefillah, says the Talmud of Baal Shem Tov, you people who think that if you sing, you're serving Hashem, and it's a beautiful davening, and it's so harmonious, and it draws you in, he says, you're fooling yourself. You're fooling yourself. And what is he talking about? He's not talking about Shmona Esrei, because Shmona Esrei, everybody knows you have to say it in a whisper. He's talking about those parts of davening that are said aloud. The Kel Adon they sing, and or for Kedusha they sing, or for Hallel they're singing. Because you really want to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that also has to be with full focus and full concentration and Bo'al HaTeva. So you all say, look, it's like a Kalbach, look what he did. To Klal Yisrael, look how he was so sexy. There's two levels. There's two levels. One level is, if you're very far away, then you have to be brought in. But once you get in, then you have to leave all that. You have to leave all that. I told you with the story with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I lived in Crown Heights for a good part of my life, before I made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, a long time ago. And I would see all the Hasidim, chuckling and singing and all that. And Shmona Esrei, everyone's still shaking back and forth. The Rebbe doesn't move one limb. He stands like a statue, Shmona Esrei, in full view of everybody else. Standing Shmona Esrei, not moving a limb. So I said, you Hasidim, I said to the Hasidim, you're always copying everything the Rebbe does. You wear the kind of hat that the Rebbe loves, and the kind of kapota that he wears, and the kind of gartel that he wears. Everything you do like the Rebbe. So why don't you daven Shmona Esrei like the Rebbe?
Oh.
So they said to me, very simple, very good answer. He says, we're trying to get in, but he's already on the inside. When you try to get in, you push. He's already in there, so there's nothing to push anymore. But that's the point. The point is, if you really want to daven properly, and you're singing, so singing takes away part of your concentration. You're concentrating on the harmony, on the music, on the melody. And I remember shuls that I went to that their whole davening was just singing. Davening sort of was like, not as important. The point is to have a good nigun, good Baal Tefillah who knows how to get all the tzibur, into it by singing. This was a Orthodox shul. These people weren't newcomers. That's the way it was. It's like part of the gullus, and sort of, it's.
And they would pay these chazans that had a good voice and a good nigum, a good singing voice, lots of money to keep the congregation singing.
Yeah, it's because of the gullus. The gullus is the people have lost their appreciation of what true tefillah is. And this was my, I would say, great surprise a number of years ago when I picked up the Sefer. I had it in my house for 30 years. I would look at it once in a while for a Dvar Torah, that's about it. Then I took a look at this section on Tefillah, and I started learning it. I said, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I realized that I was really fooling myself all my life. I'm going to shul all my life, and I think that I'm davening, I'm a good Jew. Well, maybe I'm trying, but I was off the track. This is the truth. This is the truth. No one can deny that. Shmona Esrei is the climax of the tefillah, the high point of the tefillah, and that you cannot sing. You have to say it quietly. You have to concentrate, kavanah. Otherwise, you're not yotzei. So that should be true of the rest of the davening also. But if you're not there, you can't do it. You need the singing to pull you in. Okay, so you do it. What do you do? But you have to know that there is something higher. That if you can say, let's say Ashrei. You want to say Ashrei. Ashrei is the praise of Kodesh Baruch Hu. You want to really appreciate what the words say, what David HaMelech wrote in Tehillim. You want to say it? You have to think about it. You have to think about what it means. And attach yourself to it. And go into the words. Become part. I want to identify. I want to be part of you, David HaMelech. I want to be part of you when I'm saying the Ashrei. Just like you wrote it. You weren't singing when you wrote it. He was concentrated. You can't be an author and sing. You have to think and concentrate and write. And you're fully focused when you're writing. So you want to become part of David HaMelech with his writing. Your singing is going to distract you. It'll distract you. Anytime you're meditating or you're thinking about something, take, for instance, if you're daydreaming. You're daydreaming. And you're really into something, it really caught you, and you're really into it, and if you're going to hear singing, it's going to disturb your daydreaming. The singing is going to disturb it. It distracts you. You have to have quiet and focus. That's real tefillah. That's the way tefillah is supposed to be. Okay, so that was last week. Now before we go further, I want to give you an appreciation of what the words of tefillah are, our words that we are from our mouth. How much power there is in our words. This all comes as a result of our parsha that we just had, Matos. Matos begins with Parshas Nedarim, basically. Now you're going to learn something which is going to really make you think. It's really, really chomer lemachshava. Really thought-provoking, and you will look at your own speech a lot differently after you hear exactly what we're going to say. We have basically, the Gadol, two kinds of nidarim. We have what we call nidrei mitzvah, and we have nidrei isur. Nidrei mitzvah is, I pledge, I'm going to give 500 shekel to the shul. I'm going to give 1,000 shekel to tzedakah. That's nidrei mitzvah. I'm going to learn 10 prokim of mishnayos. It's a neder to do a mitzvah. That's a positive neder. Something you're going to do. The other kind of neder is nidrei isur, where, like a nazir. Nazir, he wants to stay away from wine, stay away from tumah. I am a kabbalah on myself nazirus, it's a neder, and I am now abstaining from something. Wine is now usher to me. If I drink wine, I'm a nazir, my nazir becomes batal, I have to bring a korban, I'm going to get, I did an avera, I was over on my neder. So nidrei isur means you have an object, which is totally kosher. For instance, let's say you have an apple. An apple can't be better. Grown by a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Shem's apple. Kosher l'mahadrim in a mahadrim. Now, is there any problem of kashrus in the apple? No problem. It's not orla, it's kosher apple, everything is perfectly all right. This apple, for me, is very tempting. I love apples. I eat too many apples. So I want to control myself. So I'm going to say, Tapuach zeh asur alai beneder. I make this apple asur to me. Now, what is the status of that apple that was 1/2 a minute ago a kosher l'mahadrin min a mahadrin apple? What is this apple now to me? You know what this apple is now to me? This apple is to me a piece of chazer. This apple, which was 100% kosher 1/2 a minute ago, became for me, by my words, a piece of chazer. If I eat the apple, I can get malchus. Because over on neder. I did an avera for eating an apple. It's not Yom Kippur. It's not a tainus. It's a regular day. Apples are mutter to eat. But if I made a neder, this apple became a piece of chazer. This is mind-boggling. How could my words change this apple from a piece of fruit to a piece of chazer? In other words, we're saying what? That a person's speech has the koach to change a reality. There is a reality of a kosher apple here which now became treif. Why did it happen? Why? Because in my speech, which was given to me by a Kodesh Baruch Hu, as it says to Adam Rishon, Vayipach be'apav nishmas chayim. What is the Targum say? Ruach Mamallah, the abilities to speak. We're the only creation in the world that can speak. Animals can communicate with sound, but they cannot speak words. Only maybe a parrot can copy our words, but they don't have original words. They can't make up their own words. We have the koach of dibur. That dibur has kedusha in it. It has the kedusha of the Shechina in our words. And therefore our words have tremendous amount of power. So much power that I can take something which was created, mutter, and now it became a chefza, an object of isur. That's the power of our words. So that nobody think that when you're speaking, you're saying davening, what is my davening going to accomplish? What am I, a speck of sand in the world? What am I? Who am I? What am I doing? Making a big mistake. Making a big mistake. Your words have tremendous amount of power. Tremendous amount of power. Even though it's true that we only, in one way, only are a speck of sand in the universe. What are we? Nevertheless, the opposite is also true. For this little speck that you are a chelik of Elokai Mimau. You have a chelik of the Kodesh Baruch Hu in you. And that gives you this power to say things and change by your words. You can change a reality. Before it was mutter, now it's a real issa. And the Torah gives it a haskava. So we should realize how much our words can accomplish. Very, very important to realize how much your words can accomplish. Of course, we're talking about words that you're thinking about what you're saying. If you don't think what you're saying, it's empty. Empty words. Empty words like it's a guf without a neshama. Your machshava and the words together make up that special energy that the words have. And therefore, when a person prays, when he davens, he should give respect to those words and not swallow them. Say them clearly. If you want them to have the proper effect, you come to shul anyway, right? You come. So while you're there, you don't want to waste your time. You come to shul and you daven without kavanah, without focusing, you're wasting your time. You accomplish maybe 1/10 of what you can accomplish if you have concentration on what you're doing. And remember we said, Al Shloisha Dvarim Ha'olam Omed, 3 things keep up the world. Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasadim. And the middle one is Avodah. Avodah means Avodah Shebelev. That's Tefillah. Tefillah is a necessary element to keep the world sustained, keep the world standing, functioning. Tefillah is necessary. It says when Adam Rishon was created, all of the growths, the vegetation and the growth was below the surface of the ground. It was ready to sprout up, but it didn't sprout yet until Adam Rishon was mispala. And then things began to sprout. So it seems that there is a koach in our tefillah to make things happen. Of course, Adam Rishon did it with full concentration, with full kavanah. If you say words without concentration, in a sense you are showing disrespect to the words that Chazal picked for us. They see there's the words will make the accomplishment of Tikkun Olam, and you're showing disrespect for that by not concentrating on what Chazal say. So it's very difficult to do the same thing every single day, 3 times a day. It's very difficult. It's monotonous. It's hard to concentrate each time. It's hard. But that's what part of being a Jew is. We weren't brought on this world to have, as we say, a bowl of cherries. We are brought in this world to accomplish things, to make tikkun olam. There's a special pasuk in Eov, which is always quoted, Adam la'amal yulad. Why was mankind created? Not even Jews. Mankind was created la'amal. Amal means to have tircha, to be busy doing things. This is a world where actions speak louder than words. We have to do things. And concentrating on what we're saying while we're saying them is doing a big thing. That's the way tefillah has to be done. And it takes a little bit of time, it's true. It takes time. The davening takes a little bit longer that way, but it's worth it. Because that is a major, I would say, occupation of the Jewish people. All our tefillah, our koach is bepeh. We're not warriors. Our main work on this world is bepeh. Our main world. Torah is bepeh, tefillah is bepeh. Our main work on this world is dafka through our mouths. And I'm going to reiterate again what I said from the Gra. And this is startling. I've told it a number of people are shocked that the Gross said such a thing. He wrote it actually to his family when he was away. He wrote it to his family. He said to them, you should know, the Iker Schus to Olam Haba is not Torah and it's not Maisim. It's Shmiras HaPeh. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. The Iker Schus for Olam Haba is Shmiras HaPeh. What you do say and what you don't say. And that is a great, I would say, challenge for many, many people. Many people must talk. Very talkative. And it's really worth counting your words. Only saying what's necessary. And just not saying, if it's not necessary, don't say it. Don't say it. It's too holy, too special a commodity to waste on nourishing talk, on stam gibberish. It's a waste. The words that comes out of a person's mouth have kedusha in them. Even everyday words, not even tefillah or Torah. Anytime you talk about anything, it has kedusha in it. So the words that you do speak should be words which are absolutely necessary to speak. Otherwise, don't waste it. It's like a Baal Tashchis. You know why it's a Baal Tashchis? I'll tell you another reason why it's a Baal Tashchis. When you're born, you're given a certain amount of words to speak. And you use up the words, that's it. It may not be the end of your life. Many times it is. They go together. But many times it could be that you lose your power of speech and you go on living. I knew a rabbi who was very, very talkative. And he said, you know, I know when I start, but I never know when I'm going to end. And because he was a rabbi, people didn't want to be disrespectful to him, so
They let him speak.
they let him speak. What are they going to do? The rabbi's speaking, he's speaking. And you know what happened? Taka got a stroke. And he lost his power of speech. He lived a few years afterwards in tremendous Yisurim because of a stroke.
It says in Pirkei Avot.
What did it say, Pirkei Avot? What?
You're sitting at a table with a bunch of chachamim. Keep your mouth shut. They'll think that you're also
Okay.
otherwise, if you open your mouth, they'll find out that how stupid you are.
All right, that's another thing. That's another thing. But there's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Nafshi yotza bedabro. Nafshi yotza bedabro. They use a remez to that. When you speak, you're using up words. So I'm saying, why is it about Tashkis to talk nourish talk, things that you don't have to talk about? Because you're using up the words that were given to you, and you don't want to use those words. You want to save them. You never know when you're going to need those words. Don't waste your words. You give it only a certain amount of words to speak in your lifetime, and then afterwards, that's it. Finished. Okay. We're up to, and you have, those of you who have the pages, we're up to the page, in the photograph page that you have, 129. You have 129? Yeah, everybody else have that? You have it from last week?
Mordechai, yeah?
No, that page is not clear.
Copy?
If you have it, is that 129?
That's 128.
128, that's the wrong page.
128, you don't have 129 over there? Rabbi Diamond brought in a bunch of pages.
Last week we photographed him in the office.
No. That's what we have.
All right, look, I'll read it. I'll read it to you. We only have 20 minutes left, so I don't want to waste time with going to photograph it now. I'll just read to you a small paragraph what he says here. What we said right now can have the danger of making a person feel a bit haughty. You know now a lot more than other people know about speech and tefillah, and you look at yourself as, you know, you're something more special than other people in shul. So the Baal Shem Tov says the following. He was megala. She'afal pisha adam mispalel b'dveikus v'ava v'yira karoi. A person can know what we learned and really focus and attach himself and become inflamed with the words and really, really get into it and feel a tremendous kesher to the words and ava and yira. So he says very, very, very careful. Mikol makom yizaher sheyeh lo hachnoa lifnei Hashem yizbarach karoi gamke. At the same time that you are davening with tremendous devotion and concentration, and your heart is fully into it, you have to be very, very careful also to remain extremely, extremely humble. Very, very important. Because one of the things that makes God want to run away from you is your gaiva. If a person has gaiva, if he feels himself to be something special, you lose it. No matter how strong your davening is, no matter how much focus you have in your davening, but if you feel, yeah, I'm davening, you lose the connection. Very important to maintain that humility. You have to realize, as we say in some of the shuls, you find it on the Aron Kodesh or find it on the Paroches, Da lifnei mi ata omeid. You have to realize, before you walk into the shul, that's the key for success. You have to stop at the door. You have to stop at the door and realize you're not coming into your living room. It's not just another room in the house. You're entering the Havdil, Elf Havdalah, you're entering the Vatican. You wouldn't just run into the Vatican and say, hello, how you doing? You'd stop and you'd be careful before you walk in there. You know, it's a special place. You have to be very careful. And it's a Makam Tumah. If you're walking into a Makam Kadosh, this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's home. This is where the Shekhinah resides. Achas kama v'kama, you be careful before you walk in. We learn where we learn this from, a living example of it, from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the architect to build the Mishkan. Architect. He wasn't the engineer. The engineer was Betzalel. He was the main engineer. And you know how old Betzalel was, by the way?
18.
Close. He was 13 years old. Imagine that. 13 years old, Betzalel was given to be chief engineer to build the Mishkan. He had certain knowledge of the Shemus HaKodesh, Brias HaOlam. Now, being in the Dor Deah, it's not that much of a surprise. They had already gone through Kriyas Yamsuf. They had already gone through Har Sinai. They had tremendous exposure to things which we can't even imagine. So he had this ability to know how to take the energies that are necessary and use the proper wording and fit them into the kelim of the Mishkan. But who's the architect? One in charge? Moshe Rabbeinu. So in Parshas Vayakel and Pekudei, the end of Shemos, there's a summation of all of the kelim and how much was used and all the donations that Moshe got. Everything that was used to build the Mishkan. And then we come to Vayikra. After the Mishkan is built, all the cheshbonos are made, what was used and how much was used for everybody else. And Moshe wants, he built the Mishkan. He built the house, you have a contractor, Kablan. He's so happy after he built, goes in, takes a look around. Machaya, it was such a nice building. Walks in. Oh, Moshe Rabbeinu stands outside. Doesn't go in. Doesn't go into the Mishkan. He was in charge, he built it. Until he got called, Vayikra, Moshe. Until he was called to go in, he wouldn't go in, Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not my house. I built it. I'm in charge. It's not mine. It's this Kadosh Baruch Hu's world. It's a different arena altogether. You don't walk into such a place, stop. And our shuls are considered to be a mikdash ma'at. We don't have the luchos, we don't have the kruvim, we don't have the same level of ruach, but the Shechina is there. The Shechina is there in our Batei Knesset, but the Shechina is there. And before you walk in, you stop at the door and you say, thank God I had the schus to come in. And you're so kind to Kadosh Baruch Hu to let me in. Vani barov chastecha avoy veisecha. I'm so thankful to you, your great kindness that you gave me the ability to come in to your home. You're invited in. And then you stop at the door and you say that. Then when you walk in, you don't say to every your friends, how you doing? What's new? I haven't seen you so long. Let me hear the latest. That's not for a shul. That's for outside the shul. And you know, at the beginning of the corona, about a year and a half ago, when it started with Purim time, Purim, March, April, all the rabbis that I heard speaking, and there was one who gave a very good speech to his community in America. He was saying to them, you know why we're locked out of the shul? You know we're locked out of the shul? All the shuls are closed. America, Europe, shul, all the shuls are closed. Can't go into shul. Hashem is saying, you don't realize where you are when you come into shul. You're talking during davening, during Kriyas HaTorah, before davening, after davening. My friends, go home and think it over. When you're finished thinking it over, come back to me. And this is what happened. This is what happened. The shuls were all closed for almost a year. Shuls were closed. Hashem obviously did not want us in shul. And it wasn't because of the Goyim, it wasn't because of the Arabs or any laws. Our Rabbanim said, Asur l'lechet lebeit HaKnesset. Our own Rabbanim, our Gedolim. Based, of course, on the Mizrah Briyut and all the health authorities. But our Rabbanim came out with the psak that you're not allowed to go to shul. Sakanas nefashos, to go to shul. That's Hashem talking to us in His way. Go home, think it over. Why did I throw you out? Why did I throw you out? It's like, when a person goes to Chutz La'aretz, he lives in Eretz Yisrael, and all of a sudden he picks himself up, he goes into Parnasa. Oh, I got a good job at Chutz La'aretz. He thinks that's why he went to Chutz La'aretz. He thinks that. Hashem wants all the Jews here. He doesn't want any people to be at Chutz La'aretz. He would like everyone to come to Eretz Yisrael. This is our land. He promised this land for us. Person makes a choice to go to Chutz La'aretz to make Parnasa, he should think that it's not so simple, that you got a good job at offering out there. It could be that in some way, very subtly, Hashem is telling you, I'd rather you be there than here. You're not appreciating Eretz Yisrael. You're not appreciating Eretz Yisrael. That's what happened with the Corona. We weren't appreciating the Makom Kadosh. It's a Mikdash Ma'at. There's a halacha in the Torah as Mikdashi Tira'u. As Shabsai, as Mikdashi Tira'u. You have to have an awe, a feeling of awe, and you walk into a shul or to a Beis Midrash. A Beis Midrash is even holier than a Beis Knesset. Today, usually a shul is a Beis Knesset and a Beis Midrash together because they have shurim inside the shul too. But in olden times, in times of the Gemara, times of the Mishnah, there was no such thing. A Beis Midrash was for learning only, and a Beis Knesset was for davening only. That's the way it was. It was two separate entities. But today it became mixed today. But in every case, either way, it still has a halacha of umikdashi tiro. When you walk into a Beis Knesset or a Beis Midrash, all of a sudden, no talking. Only Torah and Tefillah. or mitzvahs, whatever. Something to do with Hashem. Something to do with Hashem. You know, this brought down in the Ramah. You see this all the time. You know, parents bring their children to shul. Bring the children to shul. The husband brings his child to shul to give his wife a break, so she can relax. So it takes the kid to shul. And the kid, they're holding the kids, and they have to kiss their children also sometimes. The Ramah says, to kiss a child in shul, in front of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, all of your emotions are supposed to be directed to him. You don't kiss a child in shul. You can quiet him down, you can calm him down, talk nicely to him. But to kiss a child in shul? I don't understand. The French, they kiss each other in shul. Cheek to cheek. It's a minute by them. The French do it all the time. I don't understand it. I don't know. Well, they don't hold. Maybe the Sephardim. Maybe the Sephardim do it. I don't know if the Ashkenazim do it. But the Ramah is Ashkenazi. Because how do you kiss somebody in shul? Your kisses you have to say for the Sefer Torah. You kiss the Sefer Torah. Your emotions you have to direct to Kadosh Baruch Hu. You're in His house. In His house. Would you walk into somebody else's house and kiss your wife in somebody else's house? Chalil v'chas. Chalil v'chas. It's not respectful to somebody else.
Shake your hand.
Shaking the hand is, all right, that's bimkom, it's a little bit better. But they kiss each other by cheek to cheek. French do it. They don't have their amor. I don't know. But this is the idea. So you have to be getting back to what the Shem Tov says. You have to remember, as devoted as you are in your tefillah, you're davening with a lot of kavanah, you're really concentrating. You have to remember, you have to do it with humility. You have to do it with humility. You have to know your place. It's very important. If you want Hashem to listen to your tefillahs, you have to be humble before Hashem. No matter how strong your davening is, in the back of your mind there must be a humility. And therefore, you must stop at the door before you walk into the shul, and you say that pasuk, "V'ani barov chasdecha avovesecha." With your great kindness, I'm privileged to be able to come into your house. And when you say that, when you walk into shul, your entrance into the shul is a different experience altogether. You say it, you think what you say, just not say it like a robot. But you say it, you really thank Hashem that you're able to come to shul, because you know many people don't have that ability. They can't come to shul. They would love to go to shul, but they can't. For whatever reason there is, they can't. It's a great honor and a privilege to be able to come to shul, to experience all that kedusha. I think it was Rabbi Preda. You know, Rabbi Preda said there was a community before Rabbi Preda. There was a community in Copenhagen. There was a man who lived to over 100 years old. So they asked him, what's his secret? What's his secret? So they found that it wasn't him, it was the whole community, the entire shul. They always came early to shul. They always came early. There was no such a thing as coming late. They were all makbid to come early to shul. When you go to do a mitzvah, you want to greet a Kadosh Baruch Hu, you want to come earlier, be on time, show that you really appreciate what it is to come to the Shekhinah. You want to be there, bezrizus. There was one man who lived only till the 70s. And he was the only one who was a late comer. The other ones lived till close to 100. All of them. The whole shul, they was to come early. They all lived to approximately, this one lived, when we were talking about, he lived to over 100. But the other ones lived to approximately that age too, but maybe a little less. Except for one person who used to be a latecomer. And he lived only till the 70s. It's a great privilege. Mamish, it's a great privilege to come into a shul. You benefit just by being there. You know, we have a pasuk that we say every single day, 3 times a day. Ashrei Yoshvei Veisecha. Right? Or the Halucha Sef. That pasuk is quoted by the Gemara. It says, you say you have nothing to do, and you're standing outside a shul. Should I go into the shul? I'm not really, I'm not davening now. I davened already. I don't have any shir to go to. Should I go into the shul? If the door's open, go in and sit down. Why? To sit in shul is a mitzvah, and it's based on that pasuk. Ashrei Yoshvei Veisecha. Even if you don't learn a word, you don't daven a word, just to sit in the shul. The word Ashrei is it's Rabbi, it's not Mu'ushar. It's Ashrei. There are many, many wonderful things that you're fortunate just for sitting in a shul. It's a makom kadosh. And people take it for granted. They don't realize, they don't know. The Gemara says, based on that pasuk, it's Ashrei Yoshvei Veisecha, just to sit. It's Ashrei. It's a great fortune to sit in a shul or a base of MIDRASH, because the kedusha is there, and you are absorbing that kedusha. But you have to realize that in Makom Kadosh, you have to behave, you have to be humble, and then you get the benefit. So the Shem Tov says, no matter how strong your davening is, you must maintain that humility. You have to realize you're in a different realm. You're in God's territory. It's not your territory. You're in God's territory. And it's filled with the Shekhinah, and therefore you must remain humble. And he ends off with this, and with this will end off. Kipam echad hispalo im talmidav b'dveikus gedola. There was one time, an occasion, where they all were davening with a lot of fervor, a lot of attachment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'lo haylam hachna, and they didn't have this humility. They got so involved in their davening that they forgot in the undertone of Vayakitrud gadol milamala. And the Baal Shem Tov sensed that min hashamayim there is a kitrud against them, because in spite of the fact that they were davening with a lot of fervor, they lost the humility. They forgot about the humility, and there was a kitrud against them. Rak echad hayimispalo b'hachna v'nitzulu al yidei sef. But there was one person in the group who was davening with humility, and he saved them from that kitrud. So it's very, very important when we walk into a shul, of course, to remember to put yourself into the davening, try to attach yourself to the words, think of the letters in your mind, and try to expand the letters and let yourself flow into the words, into the letters. But remain humble at all times. And then you have Hatzlacha Rabbi in your davening. And in Mitzvah Shem, in 2 weeks, we'll be back and continue. Next Sunday is Tisha B'Av, no Shiurim. So I hope to see you in Mitzvah Shem in 2 weeks. Amen.